Back in 2022, I tried to see every species of dragonfly and damselfly breeding in Great Britain, and I made a series about it, which I posted on this channel. There's a link to the playlist below if you want to start at episode 1. The last episode I posted was my visit to Scotland, where I did see my final species on my life list, the azure hawker, and I managed to film a couple more that I needed for the year. But unfortunately, I didn't see the white-faced darter, and I've linked to that episode too down below. But I never did finish off the series. So here is a summary of what happened in the last few months of 2022. On my journey back from Scotland, I caught a nasty cold and was still feeling a bit tired when I made it to Canvey Way Ditch in early August. And my main targets were 3 species: the Scarce emerald damselfly, the southern emerald damselfly, and the southern migrant hawker dragonfly. It didn't take long for me to find a nice male southern migrant hawker, which was sitting nicely. Another one ticked off for 2022. The bright blue eyes and the fact they only have blue and black spots on their abdomen show that this is the male of this species. It just sat there, so I got some nice side views, showing that almost entirely yellow thorax that helps identify this species, and those blue eyes that give it its alternative name, the blue-eyed hawker. I also found a female perched up. She lacks the blue eyes, which is why I don't really like that alternative name. I then found a second perched up male, which was odd, because it was certainly warm enough for them to be flying around, but all the ones I found to start with were perched up and reluctant to fly. Less than 2 weeks before this, the temperatures hit record levels and nearly reached 40 degrees centigrade in Essex, and it's possible this had affected their behaviour somehow. The ditch is a temporary one, by which I mean it dries out every summer, but this year, in the drought conditions, it was bone dry, and to start with, there was no sign of any emerald damselfly species, but I did find this ruddy darter dragonfly, which, like the 2 emerald species and the southern migrant hawker, has fast-growing nymphs that do best in ditches and ponds that dry out every summer. And the ruddy darter was another new species for the year. I found a second female southern migrant hawker. You can see the yellow side to the thorax, and the off-greenish yellow tint the females usually have over their body. After finding another 2 male southern migrants that just sat there, I finally spotted a scarce emerald damselfly, species number 3 for the day. Soon after, I spotted a female migrant hawker sat in a tree, species number 4. You can see the diagonal brown band on the thorax that is absent in the southern migrant hawkers. I then spotted this pair of mating ruddy darters and another distant scarce emerald damselfly, before a couple of male southern migrant hawkers started flying around. But they only did so in bursts, before perching up and just sitting there. They were not as cooperative as they normally would be, and not hovering for that long. But I got some OK footage, as you can see. At the start of the year, I would have never have thought I'd got better footage of common hawkers flying around than southern migrant hawkers. I had a good look for some more emerald damselflies, and found another scarce emerald, and my first willow emerald that I've ever found on this site. In good years, you can actually find all 4 species of emerald damselfly here. Unfortunately, I didn't find any southern emerald damselflies here, or anywhere else in 2022, which is a bit embarrassing for the Essex Dragonfly recorder. But in my defence, I suspect only a few emerged before the site dried out, and they came out a lot earlier in the year than usual. And my excuse, theory, is supported by the fact that there were only 2 records of them in Essex in the whole of 2022. Not long after, I got a tip-off that there were red-veined darters at Tices Meadow Nature Reserve near Aldershot, and the warden was doing a walk around the lake, which is not normally open to the public. Now, I had got a glimpse of this species already at Sandwich Bay earlier in the year, but they were quite distant, so I was keen to get some better footage. I managed to join the walk and spent the morning looking around the lake with a group of like-minded people, checking every darter we could see, but there were no confirmed sightings, and every darter that I filmed turned out to be a common darter. Still, it was nice to visit such a lovely reserve, and thanks to the volunteers for opening up the lake for us to look around. I realised Thursley Common was only a short drive away, so I popped in to see what I could find. I only had a couple of hours, and sadly, the first pond I visited had had its bank completely churned up by dogs. But I found a pair of mating keeled skimmers. This male posed in the sun before landing on an even better perch. And at one point it took off and oh so nearly landed back in the shot. which would have been perfect. But it's always nice to see this species, as we don't get them in Essex. And we also don't get these cool insect-eating sundew plants. I didn't see much else that day, other than the metal dragonfly sculpture, but I wasn't done with Thursley Common, as you'll see later. So I didn't go out again until the end of August, when I went back to Little Belhus, where earlier in the year I had seen both Emperor and Lesser Emperor dragonflies. But this time I was here for the late summer, early autumn species. The first species of note was a common darter dragonfly, out over the lake. There were some big carp swimming around, breaking the surface with their fins too. This small red-eyed damselfly was sat on a floating leaf, too far out for good footage though, sadly. This common darter was close enough to see the pale stripes on the legs that distinguish it from the ruddy darter. This little grebe caught a fish and struggled with it right up until I decided to adjust my camera and missed the shot of it swallowing it. Then it dived and disappeared. But I did manage to glimpse a kingfisher, which is always a nice bonus on a day out. Then I found the main target of the day, a migrant hawker dragonfly. But this male would either hover too briefly, or hover for ages facing the wrong way, before it finally moved to the right angle and flew off after a second. But I persisted for a bit, and eventually I got some better angles as it hovered side on for me. It did so well enough for me to see the alternating brown and blue spots on the abdomen, and that diagonal brown bar across the yellow side of the thorax that helps distinguish this species. And I got a nice clip of the hovering action, slowed down 10 times. As I carried on round the lake, I came across a male that perched nicely for me, before then hovering in the sun. So I filled my boots and got a whole load more footage in super slow motion. This common darter decided to get in on the action and hovered nicely for me. Not a species I've captured in flight that much, and this is probably the best footage I'd ever got of it, at least up to that point. I also managed to film it taking off in slow motion, and then in super slow motion, and got some more slow motion footage of it in flight. And the final highlight of the day were these jet black ants. That's the real name of this species, which is well named, and I always enjoy seeing these guys because they are one of the few British species that form proper ant trails like this one had done across the path. A couple of weeks later, I headed back to Thursley Common. It's mid-September. I'm here at Thursley Common in Surrey again. I'm trying to get black darter. I have seen them, but I haven't filmed them yet, so I'm going to try and do that today. And the first thing of note I saw was this toadstool, which I believe is a panther cap, related to the fly agaric. In the gorse and the heather was this stone chat, a common sight here. And by the path, this common darter posed, giving me my first dragonfly of the day. And a red admiral was perched up on the gorse nearby. Unfortunately, that year, most of the bulbul was out of action after a big fire, but one stretch remained, and it wasn't long before I spotted my target species here, a black darter dragonfly. They like to sit on the bulbulks and warm up, but can be quite flighty, so I was quite pleased to get some close-ups with my long lens, but couldn't get near them with my macro. They were not the only species enjoying the warmth of the bulbul. These common lizards are often seen here. And a bit further ahead, a pipit landed in a tree. Now, given it's Thursley Common, this could be a tree pipit, but I am not brave enough to try and identify it. Let me know in the comments if you are. I found another black darter a bit further along the bulbul, and it seemed much more approachable, and I got some close-in footage. And at one point it flew towards me. Perhaps I'd attracted some insect prey for it. So I tried filming it with my macro probe lens, and got reasonably close. It would take off, but land near me again, rather than trying to get away from me. It was really cooperating, and I got some nice shots which I was happy with. It even took off and landed in shot at one point, which is something that's always nice to get. And I got this final close-up of the face shot. Walking across the heath, I managed to film this female stonechat, and what was presumably her partner, a male stonechat. I've come back to my car because it's getting very busy out there with dogs and people running around. But I've done alright. I've got the black darter. I've got my species target for the day. But I'm going to go out to the southern half of the reserve, see what I can see there. Lots more ponds and other water bodies down there than in the northern half where I've been. So fingers crossed I'll get some more species while I'm here. Walked up the bridleway path and spotted another black darter that posed for a close-up. I kept walking to where some ponds were formed when the bridleway was repaired a year or two before. Here I found some egg-laying common darters. They lay their eggs in tandem, the female dipping her abdomen into the water, which I've filmed in slow motion here. I'm fairly sure this was the first time I filmed this behaviour from a tandem pair, so I was quite pleased with it, even if I've got better since. Walking along another path later on, I spotted a large dragonfly. I couldn't see what it was against the sun, and it turned out to be a mating pair of southern hawkers, not a species I'd managed to film well that year. So I got a few angles of them perched up in the tree, before they decided to leave and took off together. I carried on along the path which went towards the car park, then looped back around and headed back up the bridleway path again. I was heading back to have a look at the pond I'd visited a month before, but before I got there, on the path, I found a black darter that was sat among the small pines, and it let me get close with my probe lens. It then landed on the floor, but this was all I could see when I went in to film it. As I pressed record, I'd heard it buzz, and it sounded close, so I used my phone to check. It was indeed on my hat. But it obviously liked me because this close encounter didn't stop there. Well, I found a cooperative black darter. It's been on there for a minute. After this, I did manage to get a more natural looking shot of it on the ground until it spotted some prey and flew off. Well, it's starting to cool down, the sun is dropping, the wind is picking up, and I haven't seen any dragonflies for a bit, so I think I might call it quits there in terms of dragonflies. But, you know, good day out. I spotted some hornets feeding on the sap oozing from a tree, and this small flock of goldfinches was a nice bonus, but it was getting late. Try that again. So I stopped by the dragonfly statue before I headed home. In late September and October, I had a few walks looking for dragonflies at Daws Hall in North Essex, which we saw in a couple of earlier episodes. A common darter posed nicely for some shots, allowing a nice close-up, and this willow emerald posed on a perch. I even managed a taking off and landing shot, but not as nice as the one in the intro. To finish off the Dragonfly tour, I had one last visit to Little Belhus Country Park. I haven't had a chance to get out for at least a month or so looking for dragonflies. It's the 20th of November, it's getting late. This is later than I've ever seen a damselfly, and it's less than a week to my latest day for a dragonfly. So fingers crossed I'll see something today. It's feeling nice and warm. I'm getting quite warm even in this thin jumper, so fingers crossed I might see something today. Let's go see what I can find. Starting in the wetland area near the M25, I spotted a bluebottle basking, and this nursery web spider was out too. A good sign invertebrates were still about. Well, I've looked around the wetland area and I haven't found any dragon or damselflies, so I've now come down here to the fishing lake area, and it's lovely and warm, but hopefully I'll find something soon in one of these sun traps. Just walked the whole length of this side of the lake, all the way down to the end, didn't see anything, turned around, come back, and behind me right here was this common darter. This male was looking a bit worn down, with most of the red coloration having turned brown. But he posed nicely. I'm now going to head to another bit of the lake, which is a hot spot for willow emeralds at the right time of year. It's getting a bit late, but let's go see what we can find. Just after I finished recording that, the camera fell off the tripod and broke the screen. I had a little bit of a look around the lake, but that common darter turned out to be my last dragonfly of 2022. It had been a great year, lots of adventures across the UK, some amazing wildlife seen. I got the two last species of dragonfly that I hadn't seen on the British list, the Northern Emerald and the Azure Hawker, even if I didn't manage to film the latter. and of course a new species of bird, the black guillemot. Just want to say a big thank you to everyone that helped me out with suggested places to visit, and to those that showed me around and helped me out on my days out. But this isn't the end. I still need to film 3 of the British species and improve my footage of some of the others, one of which I get in the next video filmed in 2023, and I'll be putting out those videos for the Dragonfly Tour Extended. And of course I have more plans for 2026. There's a certain new dragonfly that's appeared since I recorded all those episodes, so do make sure you subscribe for that. Thanks for watching.